like he had been struck. For an endless moment he gazed down at her, his eyes growing as her own. Elizabeth? He could hardly get a word out. You remind me of her? Damn. He didn't mean to push her away so roughly, but Martha sprawled back on her elbows. Why in the hell would you ever think that? Martha rubbed her wrist where his fingers had left a mark. Maybe we'd better just pick up those decorations and... No, not until we talk about this. Blake looked off, shaking his head slowly. I admit, that first time I saw you in the store, you sort of looked like her from the back. He glanced at her reprovingly, but it never went on any further than that. Martha was acutely aware of his closeness now, his fingers beneath her chin, tilting her head so he could look at her. I liked you the first time I saw you, Martha. You were so honest and open, so cute, and I felt like I really wanted to get to know you better. Martha felt the color rise in her cheeks at his intense scrutiny. You never told me you were serious about her. His head moved slightly. We were close for a while, that's all. It didn't seem important enough to tell you. And anyway, it's in the past. It has nothing to do with you and me now. His lips closed over hers. Martha caught her breath as his body pressed her gently down in the hay. He was so strong yet so tender, and after an endless kiss, he looked down at her and smiled. I guess I'd better get you back. I don't want your brother calling out the troops. Stepbrother, Martha murmured. And he won't even know I'm gone. The last thing she wanted to think about right now was Connor and the house. The last thing she ever wanted to do was leave this warm, blissful haven in Blake's arms. Blake glanced at his watch and groaned. Just my luck. He probably has a black belt in karate, the one thing I can't do. Martha came slowly back to reality. Blake's body still pinned her lazily to the floor, and she could still feel his kiss upon her lips. If I had to guess, she said breathlessly, I'd say Connor's a total pacifist. If you had to guess, Blake teased, you mean you still don't know anything about him? Martha shrugged, impatient to change the bothersome topic. Don't you have some decorations to pick up? Is that what I came for? Blake asked innocently and then gave her a slow grin. And you're getting kind of bossy, aren't you, ordering me around? No, I only meant... Martha squealed as Blake began tickling her, and as he finally gave in to her pleadings, he hopped up with a laugh, pulling her to her feet. The stuff's probably out in the shed, but I didn't bring you along to work, you know. Why don't you wait in the van? It'll be warmer. Martha gave him a push, but he righted himself easily, looking pleased with himself. Maybe I will. You deserve to slave out there all by yourself. But work went faster with two, and after Blake pulled up the van to the shed, they lugged bales of straw, bundles of corn stalks, and dozens of pumpkins and tossed them into the back. Finished, Martha thought her arms would fall off. Darkness was sifting down as they wound their way back towards the village. Martha leaned against the window, not really paying attention to the scenery, until something in a nearby field caught her eye. She hadn't noticed the little cemetery on their way to the farm. Now in the gathering dusk, it looked almost like a mirage. Has that cemetery been there a long time? She asked, straightening to see out the window. Blake followed the point of her finger and nodded. It's used for both towns. Whitley was originally part of the Bedford estate, till the family had to start parceling off the land. Everyone's buried here now, even the family. Then what about the one behind our house? Martha asked. I thought the Bedfords were all there. That's the old family and their servants. We're talking 1800s. The town talked about moving them here, but the old family crypt is kind of intimidating to a lot of people. They finally decided to let the old Bedfords rest in peace. So, Martha hesitated, not wanting to bring up the past again, but somehow needing to know. So, Elizabeth? Yes, she's buried here. Blake's expression was very controlled. He glanced again at the cemetery in his rearview mirror. Dennis, too. Dennis? But I thought... They put a marker up for him, Blake said scornfully, in his memory, as if anyone would want to remember him. For several miles they rode in silence. Martha chanced to look at Blake's face, and it was stony and strangely cold. When he mumbled something under his breath, it was so quiet that at first she didn't even hear him. They want him to be dead, he said again, and Martha looked over with a start. Everybody wants him to be dead, including me. Blake's hands tightened on the wheel, and when he looked back at her, his eyes were dark with an emotion Martha couldn't read. But he is dead, she whispered, and Blake shook his head, his voice suddenly sad. But they never found him, Martha. What if somewhere Dennis is still alive?